not any ordinary he, not any ordinary person, but the Sarvabhuvanaranath, the Lord of all the planets, Sarvabhuvanaranath. It's a very beautiful phrase to glorify Vishwambar. Another way of saying Vishwambar. Vishwambar means the maintainer of the universe, one who's nourishing the universe. Ambara means cover, nourish. One who's covering the universe with love, who's spreading love throughout the universe, who's nourishing the universe with love. Prem Nam Sankirtan, Vishwambara. He's maintaining everyone, because life without love is not worth living. So in the age of Kali, or any age, if one does not receive love of God, or Krishna Prem, then his life is useless. He's not really existing. He's not really maintaining anything. He's simply dragging on a dead body. So Mahaprabhu is maintaining the universe by distributing love. Because love not only maintains, it sustains and creates a situation where we can live forever when we attain Krishna Prem. So he's describing this Vishwambar, Sarvabhuvanaranath. And then what is he saying? Instead of saying he went to sleep, he glanced at Yoga Nidra. Because the point is, not only is it a poetic way of saying he went to sleep, Yoga Nidra Dristipat. Dristipat means he glanced. A part of his glance. He glanced at Yoga Nidra. Because when the Lord rests, he doesn't go into ignorance as we do. The Nidra means sleeping, but it's Yoga Nidra. Means that he connects with his associates. So his resting, just like when Chaturmasya is there. Chaturmasya is coming. When Chaturmasya is there, it says that Vishnu lies down, he goes into Yoga Nidra for 4 months. Yoga Nidra means that he goes into he has confidential union with Lakshmi Devi in the privacy of their own quarters. He's no longer holding court. He's no longer giving darshan to the demigods. He's no longer doing any maintenance work. Everything's on automatic pilot. Of course, it's only a few hours. It's 8 hours of his time and 4 months of our time. So it's an insignificant portion of time. But that Yoga Nidra is not sleeping. Yoga means union. He's enjoying confidentially and intimately with Lakshmi Devi. And then we take Brahma. Brahma, they say the demigods are sleeping for 4 months, but the demigods don't sleep. So what's happening with Brahma during Chaturmasya? He's going to sleep? He's not going to sleep. He's also having a type of Yoga Nidra. And during this 4 months of our time, he's meeting with his confidential associates, the Saptarishis, the 4 Kumaras, and a group of pundits and very intellectual people. They meet together and discuss Hari Katha. But he's not involved in any functions of the universe. He's not dealing with any demons or fulfilling anyone's boons. If anyone's doing austerities, worshipping Brahma around the universe, he's not dealing with it. But he's not sleeping. He's having a private sangha. He's going in the back room of his house, you could say, with all these pundits, and they're discussing Hari Katha for 4 months. So it's like this. So we might think, the demigods are just take their pillow and crawl up into a corner somewhere and go to sleep. It's not like that. So when Gauranga, after he takes his Narayan Prasad, he's not going off to sleep. He's not just going to snore somewhere in a corner. He's going with his intimate associates or his intimate associate to engage in various pastimes. Pahaila nisha sarva parujaragan asya vasila punti karita chintan. After the night passed, all the students came and sat down with their books to study. And of course, also, without saying it directly, but glancing at Yoga Nidra can also mean his wife. He's also married. So it can be meaning he spent the night with his beloved. So now the next morning comes and the students come with their books to study. Thakura aila jatta kare ganga snan vasya karina prabhu pushtakvya vakyan. The Lord quickly returned from his bath in the Ganga, and after taking his seat, began to explain the texts. Prabhura naspure Krishna vyati rekyan shabda matre Krishna bhakti karye bhakyan. Vishwambar's explanations of the Sanskrit Pushtak did not deal with anything that was not related to Krishna. He explained every word in relation to Krishna Bhakti. Here we go again. Now he's again merged into his mood of devotion and withdrawn from his participation teaching Sanskrit and logic. The students are like a yo-yo or something, up and down. They're like a seesaw. 1 minute he's teaching him, then initiating comes back and goes into his ecstasies of Krishna consciousness, and everything's Krishna. Then they complain to Gangadas, then he corrects them, and then Lord Nimai starts teaching Sanskrit again. Then he runs into Ratnagarbha, and he hears the Bhagavatam. Then he goes into internal consciousness. And then the students, and then he comes out, and now he starts teaching Sanskrit again. Every word is Krishna, everything's Krishna, and the students, here we go again. Paduyasya kalibale datu samgyakar Prabhu bale Sri Krishna Shakti Namajar. So here the students say, "Oh dear teacher, may we ask a question?" And they asked, "What is the definition of Dhatu?" Dhatu means some term in Sanskrit, elements or certain construction, the foundation. And Nimai Vishnuvar replied, "That which is named Krishna's energy." Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states, in answer to the students' questions, Vishnuvar said, "Since Krishna's para, Antaranga or Swarup Shakti manifests Krishna's Audarya, Madhurya and Aishvarya spiritual pastimes, the energy and the energetic are thus inseparably related to each other. Similarly, when words are derived by grammatical construction, the original form of the root of each such expressive word manifests within itself an inseparably joined meaning or potency of expression." So if you can figure out that, then that's very good. In your own time you can read it over. Dhatu Sutra Vakane Sunaha Bahayaghan Dekikar Shaktiyachi Karuka Kandan. "O brothers, I am explaining the aphorisms about Dhatu. Let me see who has the power to refute my explanation." So, go on a little bit. Jata Deka Raja Divya Kalevar Kanaka Bhushita Ganda Chandan Ne Sundar. All the kings we have seen had luxurious bodies, decorated with gold and beautified with fragrant sandalwood paste. Jamalakshmi Jahara Vachane Loke Kai Datu Bine Shunatara Ye Avashtahai. Although their words determine a person's prosperity or death, hear what happens to them when their dhatu leaves their bodies. He's giving me a very interesting meaning of dhatu, because the word dhatu it's about grammar. There's something called the dhatus. But Lord Chaitanya is not answering their question. They're asking a question about Sanskrit grammar. What is the dhatu? And he's starting to talk about life airs of the body and the elements. Dhatu also means the material elements or the elements of the body. So Lord Chaitanya is answering in this way. Kotajai sarvangera saundarya chaliya kare bhasma kare kare edene puntiya. No one knows where the beauty of the king's bodily limbs goes, as some bodies are burned and some are buried. Then he goes on. The energy of Krishna dwells in the body of every living entity as the dhatu, or active principle. In other words, Lord Chaitanya, they're asking him what is dhatu. So what he's going to do is give every kind of answer what dhatu is except Sanskrit. Dhatu means this, and dhatu means that. Dhatu means the elements of the body. Dhatu means the soul. Dhatu means... The students are, oh, wow. But while he's doing that, while Nimai is doing that, he's actually enlightening his students. He's actually giving them Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the relationship of what is God, what is this world, who is Krishna, what am I, what is the actual reality, what is the difference between the body and the soul. It's very similar to Srila Prabhupada when he's preaching in New York, and one person was asking him. The reporter would ask Prabhupada, oftentimes Prabhupada would use this technique, which maybe he learned from Gauranga, Nimai Pandit. Someone would ask, a reporter would ask a question. Well, Swamiji, when did you start this ISKCON movement? Or he'd ask some other question. Why have you come here from India? So when Prabhupada would answer these questions, he wouldn't actually answer the question, but he would consider. Prabhupada was thinking, this person, this reporter, news reporter, he is a conditioned soul. And although he's asking me these questions, what's really relevant, what's really important, that he gets enlightenment, that he actually receives Sambandha Gyan, that he actually understands who he is, that there's a difference between the body and the soul, and what his relationship with God is, and he understands something about the need of human life to serve God and engage in devotional service. So Prabhupada would take these questions that they would ask about ISKCON or about why you have a shaved head or whatever, and he wouldn't answer the question at all. He would use that as a springboard to enlighten this individual person, this newspaper reporter. He said, yes, actually, he would say, what is this ISKCON? Prabhupada would say, this Krishna consciousness movement is for everyone. Actually, everyone is part and parcel of God. We're all spiritual beings. And this human form of life is actually meant to serve God. You and me, we may be thinking we're a newspaper reporter or sannyasi or whatever. Actually, we're all spiritual beings beyond this body. And the guy's here listening, trying to be respectful and humble. And he says, well, Swamiji, and he tries, even after a certain point, he runs out of patience, the reporter. He says, Swamiji, yes, I appreciate what you said, but what I mean to ask is, let me rephrase the question. When did you first start this? When did you first have the idea to give this gospel, this message of God? And Prabhupada said, so actually, the way we can realize the way we can actually understand the self is by chanting the names of the Lord. See, in every religious tradition, they have a name of the Lord, Jehovah, Allah. So here in India, we call it Krishna. Now, what does this word Krishna mean? And the guy is again getting more Sambandha Gyan, and now Nam Tattva, and then Jiva Tattva, and Ishvara Tattva, and he's getting the whole Bhagavad Gita. And all he asked for was when did Prabhupada arrived in New York, and what does ISKCON mean? It means International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Oh, thank you, goodbye. Well, Prabhupada held the guy's ear for 1 hour, and finally, when he asked his questions again, he said, oh, ISKCON, that's an acronym. That's an acronym. ISKCON, that's an acronym. It means International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Acha. And when did you start? It was started July 14th, 1965, in New York. Acha. That's what I wanted to hear, Swamiji. Thank you very much. And he writes it down and walks away. But meanwhile, to answer those two questions, he got 1.5 hours of Harikatha from Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is what's happening here 500 years ago on the bank of the Ganga. That the students are simply asking a question about Sanskrit. And Lord Chaitanya is going all over the place to give a different idea. This is what's going on. So we have to think. Now he goes on about Dhatu. The energy of Krishna dwells in the body of every living entity as Dhatu, or active principle. All affection and devotion is meant for him alone. Due to illusion, teachers cannot understand this. Yet consider carefully whether I am right or wrong. There are persons to whom we now offer obeisances and respects, but when the active principle leaves their bodies, we must take bath after touching them. That active principle is the Dhatu. The son who is happily nourished on the lap of his father touches the fire of cremation to the mouth of his father after the active principle leaves him. That which is called Dhatu is the power of Krishna, the beloved of all. Is there anyone who can refute my explanation? The students are there, oh my God. Here he goes again. He's exhibiting a disturbance of his life airs. Because that's what they said previously. When he started to get into preaching about Krishna, the students, as the verse was telling us, he said, they were saying to each other, it appears that our teacher is going wacko. His life airs, they said, it's a verse we read, we remember 2 classes ago, his life airs are being disturbed. So when life airs go disturbed, you become crazy. And you speak all kinds of crazy talk. Hey, I'm the Prime Minister. Everyone should listen to me. So that means the guy's drunk, he's crazy, he's disturbed. So this is what Lord Chaitanya is telling, giving them quite perfect knowledge. Hey mata pavitra puja, ye Krishna ra shakti, hena Krishna bhai saba kara Dhira bhakti. Oh brothers, please render unflinching devotional service unto Krishna, whose energy is most pure and worshipable. Dhira bhakti. Bala Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Shuna Krishnam, Ahar Nisha Sri Krishna Charanakara Dhyan. Vishnuvar said, Bala Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Shuna Krishnam. Chant the name of Krishna, worship Krishna, and hear the name of Krishna, Shuna Krishnam. Day and night meditate on the lotus feet of Krishna. Ahar Nisha Sri Krishna Charan Kara Dhyan. The students are thinking, well, here we go again. So interesting. See, previously when he was teaching them, when he broke into this Krishna mood, he was simply exhibiting his ecstasies to attract them. Remember, he was in ecstasy and they were observing his ecstasy. So he was showing them the sadhya. This is the sadhya, or the goal of Krishna consciousness, to experience the ecstasies of the rapture, the divine rapture of Bhakti Ras and Krishna Prem. So they were seeing this, and then he came out and started teaching them some Sambandha Gyan. And now again, when he went back into this internal mood of Krishna consciousness, and now he's, of course, after relishing that, now he's come out to the Audarya to distribute. He's not going to teach Dhatu and Sanskrit. He's going to teach and preach. This is the Audarya aspect of Mahaprabhu, Vishnuvar. So now what is he giving them? He's giving them Sambandha Gyan, explaining Dhatu. You're taking their question about Dhatu and saying, yes, you know what Dhatu is? Dhatu means the soul, and Dhatu means these elements, and these all be burned. This body will be burned up, and the sun will crack the head of the father with a piece of bamboo on the cremation, on the funeral pyre. So the soul comes. So the Dhatu, the soul, doesn't stay attached to the Dhatu of the body. The Dhatu of the soul, the element, the essential element, the Dhatu, the soul, the Atma, will leave the body when you crack the head, because the last place the soul hides out is in the head. When the body's being burned up, the soul takes shelter in the bones, because the bones burn slow. The soul goes into the head, because usually we live in our head anyway. Usually we live in our head, we're always speculating, and anyways, the soul is always living in his head. I feel this, I think that, I will this. So now, Lord Chaitanya has concluded his Sambandha, and he's so merciful that now he's giving them Abhideya. What is the Abhideya? What is the Abhideya? Abhideya means the practice. He's telling them, Puja Krishna Shakti Dhira Bhakti. He's saying, now do devotional service. Look, I've given you the Abhideya. You asked me about Dhatu, so now I'll give you Sambandha Gyan. Now you have the Sambandha Gyan. Now what do you do with it? You practice. What do? You practice Bhakti. How? Dhira Bhakti. Firm, steady, determined. Don't break. Then they say, okay, you say practice Dhira Bhakti. What do you mean by Dhira Bhakti? Okay, now I'll tell you the next verse of Abhideya. Bala Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Shuna Krishnam. This is Abhideya. Chant Krishna's name. This is Bhakti. This is Dhira Bhakti. Worship Krishna. This is Dhira Bhakti. Hear the name of Krishna. Hear Harikatha, the name of Krishna day and night. Ahara Nisha. This is, and Dhyan. Charana Dhyan. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. These are the three essential limbs of Bhakti. So he's giving the whole Abhideya in 2 verses. He's giving the whole science of Bhakti in 2 verses. Do Bhakti. What is Bhakti? Hear and chant and remember Krishna. So now the next verse, the student should say, yes, please, will you initiate us? Give us a name. So next verse, what does he say? Now I've told you about Shravanam and Kirtanam. Now I'm going to tell you about Archanam. So step by step, he's telling them the 9 limbs of devotion. Janhara charane durva jale dile matra kabo nahe jamarase adhikara patra Now the Lord has told him, now you can see the flow here. This Lord Chaitanya is really in his Audarya Bhav now. In other words, we have a phrase in English, you asked for it. All the students asked was an innocent question. Oh dear teacher of Sanskrit, can you please explain the Sanskrit term dhatu? Oh yes, dhatu means the Hare Krishna movement. Dhatu means the 9 limbs of devotional service. Dhatu means you're not the body. Acha. So he's giving them an entire course in Krishna consciousness based on asking one question, dhatu. Vishwambara said, Janhara charani durva jala dilamatra kabu nahi jamera sayadikara patra. Now he's telling him how to do archan. Anyone who offers a little water or durva grass at the feet of the Lord is never subjected to the punishment of Yamaraj. So now he's telling them patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakti prayachati tadaham bhakti paretam ashyami prayatatmanha. As Krishna told Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra about bhakti, abhideya, how to do sadhana, and how for all of us to do sadhana, he who offers me with love and devotion, bhakti prayachati, a leaf, a flower, a water, some water, then I accept that, right? So now the same teachings are happening 4,500 years later on the bank of the Ganga with Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is the Shishyagan, the Sanskrit students of Nimai Pandit Vishwambara Mahaprabhu, and the teacher is Gauranga, Vishwambara. So you can see how Vishwambara is so much in Krishna Lila. He's in Krishna Lila as a teacher, he's in Krishna Lila as a relisher, he's in Krishna Lila Madhurya, he's in Krishna Lila Audarya. Aga baka putanare jay kaila mochan bhaja bhaja say nandan charan. Worship the lotus feet of Nandanandan, who delivered Agasura Bakasura Putana. So I think we'll stop there. Now we have our next class. So he's giving wonderful discussion, he's giving wonderful teachings to his students and to everyone who studies Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, describes the glories of the Lord and how to serve Him. So especially Chaitanya Bhagavat is describing the science of serving Krishna, the seva. So any questions?
I heard that there's a difference in the historical account given by Chaitanya that Nimai Pandit did not see Vishnu Priya before he went to take sannyas. Are you familiar with this account?
It's not exactly on a topic, although we briefly mentioned something about Yoga Nidra. He's saying that Lord Chaitanya did not see Vishnu Priya until he took sannyas.
He left in the morning and didn't come back in the evening.
What do you mean by not seeing? I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Well, Chaitanya Bhagavat says that my Pandit went to bed and then rose in the middle of the night. But Chaitanya Chandrodaya says that he left in the morning, and instead of coming back to take the last meal in the evening, he did not come back. He spent the night in Kirtan and went to Katwan in the evening.
What is your question exactly? You're saying that he never saw, in his whole life, he never saw Vishnu Priya?
The last day.
You're talking about the last day?
Yes.
Well, that different acharyas who write biographies have different ideas about that. So I can't, what can I say? I can repeat the different ideas, but what the conclusion is, I haven't heard any of our acharyas say the particular conclusion. I can say that from Chaitanya Mangal viewpoint, because we translate that in English. And the edition we used was the edition that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur distributed in Bhagavazar. In 1929, he distributed one edition of Chaitanya Mangal, which we translated into English. Now, Lochandas Thakur, he explains, as is told by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So generally, when we answer a question amongst our Sangha, we will refer to our Guru Parampara. They are Mahajans. So what Bhaktivinoda believes and what Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada states, and what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati states, we the followers, at least in ISKCON Gaudiya Math, we accept that as our praman, Guru Shastra and Sadhu. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he translated and distributed Chaitanya Mangal by Lochan Das Thakur. And in the edition that he distributed, he's telling Chaitanya Mangal that the last night the Vishnupriya and Vishwambar spent the night in conjugal delight. The last night. And in the early morning, which can be considered night and morning, because some people define day as when after the sun rises, and some people define day as Brahma Muhurta. There's different definitions of what is night and what is day, because it's like that. So then that early that morning before sunrise, which can also be called day or night, Vishwambar left, and his mother was waiting at the door, Sachimata. He had some small interaction with her. I just looked and just left. That's told in Chaitanya Mangal, and that was accepted by and distributed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. What Kavi Karnapur is saying in Chaitanya Chandrodaya, I can't say. I'm not familiar just now. But I would tend to favor what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati presents, because he's my Param Guru. Is that okay?
Well, basically my question is, since Guru is omniscient, Kavi Karnapur was really qualified. I don't understand why such a qualified poet as he would have a different account. But
well, I can also answer that question. In Vaishnav Avidan by Haridas Das, he was a very reputable devotee in the time, and he collected all these different encyclopedia of all the great Vaishnavas and their contributions and beliefs and books and whatnot, deities. And it is generally accepted in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya across the board by the acharyas, contemporary acharyas at the time, and subsequent acharyas afterwards, that Kavi Karnapur was not a student of history. He was not a student of history, and he didn't have any concern with history or historical accuracy. Kavi Karnapur was primarily a rasic poet. Obviously, he's a Nitya Parishad of the Lord. That goes without saying. But he's not recognized or even looked towards for any historical accuracy by any acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. They don't cite, I've never heard, and they even specifically say that they don't cite his works as a basis for any praman for historical points. His works are cited as sources of praman for philosophical points and for ras. That's what I understand about Kavi Karnapur, because we produced 2 books of Kavi Karnapur, Ananda Vrindavan Champu and Krishnanika Kumudi. So we did thorough study about Kavi Karnapur's life and contribution, and this is what we understand about Kavi Karnapur, who also wrote Chaitanya Chandrodaya, which you are quoting from. So we don't look to Kavi Karnapur's books for historical points or as a source of historical reference or praman. Nor does anyone use them in any course of discussion. So you may take the lead of that and not use Kavi Karnapur's works for historical support. Reading from Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhyakanda, Chapter 1, Text 339. Yesterday we were discussing how Vishwambar Mahaprabhu has again absorbed himself in Krishna consciousness, or feeling a deep mood of separation from Krishna in Radhabhav. And now he's again slipped back into this mood of teaching his students again all about Krishna, which he had done previously. And then they complained to the dean of the school. They complained to Gangadas, the guru of Nimai, that your student is not acting properly. He's telling you everything, all Sanskrit, everything is Krishna. So then Vishwambara rectified himself and again started teaching the sutras appropriately from the material viewpoint. But then he met Ratnagarbha Acharya, and Ratnagarbha Acharya was a Premi Bhakta, absorbed in Bhagavat Ras, and he spoke some shlokas from Bhagavat which plunged Vishwambara deep into the ocean of separation from Krishna, and again he entered into this deep mood of Krishna consciousness. And when he again started teaching his students Sanskrit, it was all about Krishna. So this is where we are in the story. So in his teaching them about Krishna, now he's not even teaching the Sanskrit about Krishna. Now he's simply giving Sambandha Gyan, which he gave. Now at this juncture of the conversation, he's giving them Avideya Gyan, right? Avideya Tattva. He's teaching them how to practice bhakti. First he was teaching them about Krishna and the position of Krishna in themselves. Now he's, last couple of verses, first he introduced his teaching of Abhideya Tattva by saying that bhakti is the way. And now he's been telling them about Shravanam and Kirtanam. Yesterday he talked about Archanam. And now he's talking about Smaranam. So he's actually giving a whole summary of the Navavida Bhakti to his Sanskrit students, absorbed in his mood of Audarya. After plummeting into the ocean of Madhurya in the association of Ratnagarbha Acharya, he surfaced in that ocean. He came to the surface of that ocean and started to ride the waves of Audarya and distribute the nectar in the form of teaching to prepare his students also to relish the sweetness of Madhurya Bhav. But first he's giving them a strong foundation of Sambandha Gyan and Avideya. Putra Buddhi Chari Ajamila Se Samaran Chalila Vaikuntha Bhaja Se Krishna Charan. Vishwambara Mahaprabhu said to his Sanskrit students, Shishyagan, by giving up thoughts of his son, as he remembered the holy name of the Supreme Lord, Ajamil attained Vaikuntha. Therefore, worship the lotus feet of Krishna. Bhaja Krishna Charan. So he's citing an example from Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Brahman, 6th canto, and Saraswati Thakur's purport. Although the most sinful Ajamil first uttered the name Narayan, referring to his son, as soon as he gave up thoughts of his son as the object of enjoyment and simultaneously remembered that the sound vibration of Narayan is not different from Narayan, he immediately attained liberation due to the influence of Namabhas resulting from remembering Krishna. He was then able to enter the kingdom of Vaikuntha, which is transcendental, beyond the reach of the senses, beyond the jurisdiction of Maya. So this is like a lightning fast transaction here. Like in computers, you press one button and so many things happen. So initially, when the Yamadutas approached Ajamil to take him to hell because of his life of sin, in great fear, he called out to his son, because he had been calling his son so many times over the last, I don't know how old the son was, but a few years, I suppose. And he was calling his son with parental love and just thinking of it. Narayan means my son. So what happens so fast. So he's remembering his son. So when he chanted Narayan one time, he only chanted once, Narayan, he was thinking of his son out of fear, seeing Yamaduta, so he called Narayan. So the thought went to his son, but then the next thought in a second was he thought of his son, but then the next thought was he thought of God, because he also had samskaras to remember God and to chant God's name. Because before he met the prostitute and fell out with her for so many 80 years or something, he would chant Narayan's name and think of God. So this all happened like in splits of second. He said, Narayan, my son. Narayan, God. So Narayan, his son, was only once. He only said Narayan, but he thought son. Then next he said Narayan, my son. But then nothing happened. The Yamadutas were still there, because he had all his sanskaras to call it Narayan means his son. But he also had sanskaras in his chitta that Narayan means God. So what happened is the brain in a super fast binary computer, it went from the sanskara to son, which is Maya, and keep you here, Then it immediately dipped into the sanskara for Narayan means God, with only one name, and he thought of God, and then the Yamadutas left. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is saying. So that became Namabhas. That name, like half the name, it's only Narayana, Narayana. So Nara part of it was Namaparad, and Ayana was Namabhas. But that was enough, Ayana, to Vamus. The Yamadutas Vamus, they left. And so then he was saved. And so now he continued on the line of those Purva Sanskaras. And then after he was saved, the Yamadutas left. He said, "Whew, that was a close one." Okay. And then he said to little Narayan, "Goodbye, Mrs. Narayan, and my wife." And then he went to Hardwar and he did Nam Bhajan. And then he attained Vaikuntha. So this is what's being said here in this purport. Janara Charane Sevi Shiva Digambar Ye Charana Sevi Bari Lakshmina Adhar. Vishnuvar Mahaprabhu continued. While serving Sankarshan, while serving Sankarshan's lotus feet, Lord Shiva goes about naked. The service of those feet is desired by Lakshmi. So, in the previous verses we had heard how the Lord was talking about Shravanam and Kirtanam and some Smaranam, and now he's talking about Padasevanam. This is the progression of the 9 limbs of devotion given in Bhagavatam by Prahlad Maharaj. So in his own summary way, giving a summary course. This is a first VIG course. Vishnuvar Mahaprabhu is giving a summary course here, a crash course in Sambandha, Videya and Prayojan to his Sanskrit students, because he really wants to do udar, welfare for them. After teaching them Naya and Vyakaran, now he wants to give them, which is Vidya, now he wants to give them Paravidya. So now he's talking about Padasevanam, which means serving the lotus feet of Krishna. Bhaja Krishna Charane, serve the lotus feet of Krishna. Then again, now he says, well, you should serve the lotus feet of Krishna. And the next thing is, well, why? And who's done it? What's the big deal? And what are those lotus feet? Oh, you don't know. You're so much studying Sanskrit and Aya, you don't know. Well, let me tell you. Those feet, you've heard of Lord Shiva? Oh yeah, I've heard of Shiva. He's pretty famous here in India. Well, that's why he's gone crazy, because he's worshipping those feet of Sankarshan. His Ishadeva is Sankarshan. And that's Krishna also. Krishna's expansion, Sankarshan. Ananta Shesh. So he's worshipping those feet, and by worshipping those feet, going naked. What is going naked? Does going naked mean he's streaking? Like the college students used to take off their clothes and streak across the campus in the 70s. It's called streaking. Does it mean that he's an exhibitionist? No. What does it mean naked? It means he has no attachments. That's what it means naked. Digambra means he has no material attachments. So he's saying, you know Shiva? Yes, I've heard of Shiva. Students, you've heard of Shiva? Yes, Om Namo Shivaya, Bam Bam Bole. Well, he's not even attached to clothes. You may be a great yogi, but at least you wear a langoti. You may be a Brahmavadi, or you may be a whatever, but you're wearing something, a kopin or langoti. But he's not wearing anything. He's not even attached to clothes. And how did he get to this exalted position of detachment? By Sri Bhaja Krishna Charane. Bhaja Krishna Charane, by worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna in the form of Sankarshan, who is Vishnu. And what more about those feet? What more about those feet of Krishna? And you've heard of Lakshmi? Oh, students, have you heard of Lakshmi Devi? You heard? You have that poster in your house, right? Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga. The 3 Devis, one's showering the coins, and one's sitting on the lion, and one's playing the veena, right? And you do your puja every night. Oh, please bless me, Saraswati, I can learn all these sutras and all these dhatus of Sanskrit, right? Well, that Lakshmi who's showering the coins in the poster, she's aspiring, she's endeavoring and doing tapasya to attain a seva of those lotus feet. Ye charana sevi bhare Lakshmir Adar. Adar means she has great regard. Adar, she's praying. Adar, she has great respect. Adar, when will I attain that fortune of those lotus feet? And the students are saying, really? Those feet are like that? Bhaja Krishna Charane? These are the feet you're talking about? that Shiva has left everything in this world, all attachments, everything, simply by worshipping those feet, simply by one limb of bhakti, padasevanam, such exalted state of consciousness and life he's attained. And Lakshmi has given up all her wealth, all her everything. She's sitting in Bailvan eating khichdi under a bael tree, and she only gets khichdi 4 times a year. The rest of the year she eats bilva patra and jamuna jal. And she's doing such austerities to attain a seva of Krishna's feet. Really? Vishwambara, it's like that. Oh, this bhakti is so powerful, because he introduced this whole thing of Abhideya by saying you should bhakti yoga. This is the best way, this is the best activity you should perform bhakti yoga. That was 9 verses before. Now he's explaining what is this bhakti yoga, my dear students. So they say, okay, now we understand more. Then the next question the students ask, well, how do we do it? How do we worship those feet that Shiva has attained and Lakshmi? Shiva has attained them, and he's had such transformation. Lakshmi's yet to attain them. She's trying to attain them, and you're encouraging us to try to attain, to serve them. I mean, how do we do it? How can we serve those feet? Ananta ye charana mahima gunagai dante trina kari bhaja hena Krishna pai. Trina, danta trina, trinadapi sunichena tarori vasveshana amanina amanidena kirtini suvara. Danta trina. What is danta? It means dentist. Danta means you go to the danta. It means you go to the dentist. Dental work comes from Sanskrit, Bengali, danta. We should all Krishna's Kaviraj is saying that all Gaudiya Vaishnavas should become dentists. Right? He's telling everyone. And chapter 20, Antilila, you should all become dentists. And string this shloka around your necks for constant remembrance. All you dentists out there. Trinada pi sunichenava. You should be humbler than a blade of grass. You should danta, hold a trina between your teeth and become a dentist. Little humor is also good. Right, Charlie? Don't be too serious. He's very serious, which is good and making me more sober. I need a shot of sobriety. Dante Trina Kari Bhaja Krishna Pai, he says, Ananta Charana Mahima Gunagai. These feet are glorified by Ananta. Charana Mahima Gun Gai. He's singing Ananta. First he already mentioned Ananta in the previous verse. Ananta Shesh is the Ishta of Shiva. So it's very interesting what he's saying if you think about it. He's saying Shiva has given up everything in this material world and he's going around naked while serving his lotus feet. Whose lotus feet? He just says his here. Janhara Chanana Sevi, Shiva, Digambar. He's become totally attached. The only attachment he has is the wind. Wind around his body, that's his clothes. Dig Ambara, the directional wind. He's covered Ambara by the dig, the directions, the wind. So who is that him or he that he's worshipping? Now in this verse he's saying, yes, and that Lord, the Lord of Shiva, Ananta, what is he doing? He's glorified. He's also engaged in the service of Krishna's feet. Because Balaram's greatest Sevananda is to serve Krishna. It says he's absorbed in Sevananda. That's in Adi 5. Talking about Balaram and Nitai. The Balaram is Sevananda. He's absorbed in the bliss of serving Krishna. So that Ananta, he's glorifying, that Ananta Shesh is glorifying the gun. Gai means singing. He's singing the qualities. The Charana Mahima Gun Gai. Charana, the Mahima, the glories, the fame of the Charan, of Krishna's Charan. He's singing about it. How many mouths? Is he singing about it with one mouth? How many mouths? He's only singing the glories of Krishna's feet with one mouth? How many mouths? Thousands of mouths. Anantamuk. And so not only in this verse is he answering the student's question of how do we serve those lotus feet, but he's saying that you should with great humility. Dantatrina, you have to approach these lotus feet with great humility. And although we have no adhikar, these feet are being worshipped and the glories of these feet are being sung by Ananta with its thousands of mouths. But anyway, knowing how exalted and how great these feet of Krishna are, These feet of Krishna means devotional service. This is Padasevanam, it's a devotional service. How much humility must be there, and how much adar, how much regard we should have for Bhakti itself, or herself. So then Mahaprabhu says, Yavat achaye pran, dehi ache shakti, tavat karaha Krishna para, tavat karaha Krishna para padme bhakti. Vishnu Mahaprabhu said, as long as there is life and strength in the body, you should render devotional service to the lotus feet of Krishna. So obviously these answers, or these shlokas spoken by the supreme teacher of humanity, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, are in response to the questions of the students. The questions aren't listed here, and even if they were listed, maybe they're not spoken, because not only do you have to phrase a question with your words, you can phrase a question with your eyes or with your face. So he's telling the students, you should serve these glorious feet of Krishna with great humility. And then they're asking the question, they're saying, well, how long do we have to serve them? Because these students are coming from a background of karma kandya. These students are coming from a background of jnana, upasana. They're gyanis, they're pandits. And they're born in this culture of Navadvip 500 years ago, which was pervaded by karma kandya and all kinds of pujas. So in karma kandya, there's a start and there's an end, finish. You start the yajna and you finish. You start the tapa and you finish. Chandrayana brat, Chaturmasya brat, so many brats. And then when you finish, you get the result. It begins and it ends. Because this is what's happening in this material world. Everything has a beginning and end. So this karma kandya and this jnana, it's all in this world. It's all material. For material results, most of it. So they're thinking, okay, Vishwambar, so if we humbly approach these feet and we serve them, then how long do we have to do it? For a month or 2 months or what? And it's just, we give a little bit of our energy to it, or we do a little bit in the morning. And he's saying, Pran Dehi Achi Shakti, Krishna Pada Padme Bhakti. He's saying, what is he saying? He says, as long as you have any pran in your body, if there's a drop of pran, life, essence in your body, and any strength, any shakti, pran and shakti. Shakti means power, and pran means the psychic ability, or you can say the life energy, or the life force to implement or utilize that power. You may have Shakti, but without Pran you can't express the Shakti. So he's telling both. He's saying your Pran, whatever, if there's any Pran or any Shakti left in your body, you should use that to serve Krishna. Render devotional service to Krishna. So the answer is forever. As long as you're existing, you serve Krishna. Oh my God! What is this stuff? This bhakti is something heavy. There's no beginning. I mean, it doesn't end. It goes on and on. Today, tomorrow. Well, no vacation, no chuti. What is this? I mean, we do some yajna. We do a 7-day yajna, or a 30-day yajna, or a 3-month yajna, 90-day puja. But we know there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and we finish. It's 90 days of rigorous. Every day we have to organize a puja and a yajna for 90 days. And we know that, 89 days, and we're scratching on our calendar 75. And we get to the end. And then we offer that final ablution, Swaha, after 90 days. But you're telling us every day, with every ounce of energy and all our Shakti and our Prana, Hare Baba. So when he said that with all your prana and all your Shakti, their jaws dropped. So seeing that, then he wanted to grind in the philosophy even deeper into their hearts. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Pranadan, Charane Dariya Bali, Krishna Dehaman. Listen, you puggles. This Krishna, this Bhakti, this Seva, this feet of Krishna. Krishna is your everything. He's your mother, your father, your life, your wealth, your pran, your dan. And then they're thinking, wow, he's really asking a heavy demand here. And he sees that they're not so encouraged to accept his teachings and follow his instructions. So then the teacher adopts a very humble position. Charane dharane bhali, Krishna deha man. The guru is telling them, just like Nitai did the same thing from door to door with Haridas. Guru Nitai, the Adi Guru. So the Adi Guru, Gauranga, he says, Charne Dhariya Bali, he says, I fall at your feet. I hold, and really it means Charne Dhariya. He says, I take your feet and I hold your, oh my dear students, I hold your feet on my head. And I beg you, Bali Krishna Deha Man, to engage your mind in thinking of Krishna. So now he's begging them. First he's instructing them and giving them sambandha and abhideya and illuminating them. Now he says, I beg you, with all humility, I take your feet and hold them on my head, my dear students, but please always think of Krishna. He's everything. You don't need your mother, you don't need your father, you don't need any wealth, you don't even need your pran, you don't need anything. If you have Krishna's feet enshrined in your heart and your mind, you can die right now and you'll live forever with him. You don't need anything. I beg you, please. So this is the ideal preacher. As Prabhupada said, the ideal preacher has the courage of a British soldier and the heart of a Bengali grandmother. So you have to be a Bengali to know what that means. At any rate, heart of a Bengali grandmother means very compassionate, very loving, caring, dedicated, surrendered. So you see Mahaprabhu. And then Siddhanta Saraswati quotes the verse which our Srila Prabhupada was very favorite of his, Dante Trina, another verse is in his shloka book, Dante Trina, from Chaitanya Chandramrita, verse 90. Taking a straw, this is Kavi Karnapur, taking a straw in my teeth, I fall at your feet hundreds of times and implore you with sweet words saying, O noble soul, please throw out everything you have learned and cultivate attachment to the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga. So Prabhupada tells that this is the system of preaching. Srila Prabhupada, who quoted this verse, is a very long verse. It starts off Dante Trina. And Prabhupada said, yes, we go up to the learned, and then Prabhupada was explaining, we go up to any learned gentleman. And Prabhupada narrated this on the tape. He said, we go up to some materialistic person, non-devotee, and we glorify him. You say, my dear sir, you are a very cultured man of this community. And the person says, yes. And I can see that you're very, very learned. You're very, very educated, highly educated, very learned. And then the man says, yes. And each time you glorify him, his chest goes out a little bit more, and he stands up a little straighter. And I can see that you're highly respected in this town, in this village. Everyone looks up to you and has great respect. Yes. Now he's about to blow up. He's so proud and so happy and satisfied. Then he may look and say, son, what is it do you want? Do you want something? I mean, it seems, well, there's just one small request I have. I said, yes, don't be shy. No, I just want to ask you one thing. Well, don't mind. Whatever. Don't be shy. I'll whatever you want, I'll do. My dear sir, please forget everything you've ever learned and surrender to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. So this is Prabhupada explains like this, and paraphrase, and of course quoting this verse in its full Sanskrit. So here, this is similar. This is what Lord Chaitanya is saying. He's Dante Trina. He's holding that figurative straw in between his teeth, which means his mind is saturated with humility. It's not necessary. We could also do, but the real thing is not the holding the straw between the teeth, which would be the adibhotika consideration, but the adhyatmika, or more subtle consideration, or from our viewpoint, is that we saturate our minds and hearts with great humility, And only when our hearts and minds are saturated with great humility and appreciation and love for others can we effectively go forth and preach the message of divine love which Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu has come to this world to give. So this is the whole process of devotion, is to learn the art of saturating the heart. Learn the art of saturating the heart with genuine humility. So that's why when you join the temple, everyone joins the temple like a wild stallion, like a wild Mustang. There's a type of horse in Wyoming. Wyoming runs around quite wild, and they have to be tamed. Somehow or other, if you can throw a rope around his neck, that's a good start. And then good luck after that. Because if he doesn't kick you in the head and send you to Hades, and you still get by, then you try to get a bit. Finally, you bring him back and starve him for a while till he gets weak. You bring him back to your corral and starve him for a week or two till he loses his strength. Then you throw a bridle on him. You throw a bit in his mouth. And then you can start to control him. So bhaktas, and that's probably said bhaktins, which only exist in ISKCON, but anyway. But new devotees, be they men or women, they're like wild horses, and they have to be broken, as they say. Their wild ways have to be reformed. So the temple commander says, do this and do that and clean this and chop that and wash this and wash that. And what do we say? No, no, no. Because I am bigger, biggest. I means false ego. So until the false ego is cracked, there's no possibility to make progress, sufficient progress in devotional line. And what to speak of being an effective preacher. So Lord Chaitanya obviously is setting example here as being the ideal pracharak or preacher, which is one of the missions that he's come to establish by his life's example. And this applies to all of the aspiring preachers. Charane dhariya bali krishne dehaman. I fall at the feet of the people I'm preaching to, and I beg them to please engage their minds in thinking of Krishna. So now Vrindavan Das Thakur, this Leela is concluded now. This teaching of Sambandha Gyan and Abhideya at this installment has concluded now between the Sanskrit Shishyagan of Vishrambar and himself. And Vrindavan Das Thakur speaks here. Jasya bhave kahe prabhu apana mahima haila prahara dui tabu nahi sima. In the mood of a servant, dasya bhav, right? The bhav, the mentality, the feeling, the heart's position of the servant. Dasya bhav, prabhu apana mahima. The Lord continually narrated His own glories until half the day had passed. So in response to your question, how does the Lord get pleasure from hearing His glories or hearing His holy name or any service? We see that He spends half the day glorifying Himself. And what is Mahaprabhu doing when Mahaprabhu goes to Puri for 6 hours a day, engaged in Nam Sankirtan? Whose name? His name. When he chants the names, he goes into ecstasy. Wow, what? Hari Haraya Nama Krishna. Oh, wow, Hari Haraya. Nama Krishna. Hey, that's me. Hari. Of course, it may externally look, it's certainly Bhagavan Nam, but when it's taken from the viewpoint of Radharani, which is the internal, the Adhyatmic conception, the Adhibhota conception of looking at that, the external is that Bhagavan is chanting his own names. And when you want to take that point to establish some tattva, then you can. But there's 3 levels to understand every verse or every pastime. So, from our viewpoint, from the subtle viewpoint, or from his viewpoint. So therefore, the Acharyas use that example, and which is what I'm repeating here, that the Lord enjoys relishing hearing and chanting about His own names, which He did in Puri. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. So he's saying Yadavaya Keshavaya. He's saying Keshavaya. So it's Keshav, the killer of the Keshi demon. It's Krishna Nam. So Bhagavan, Mahaprabhu, is glorifying Krishna Nam. But now that's the Bhautika consideration. But if you take it from the Daivika consideration, Adi Daivika consideration, from us, it's how it applies to us, it's Adhyatmika, whatever. But you take it from his viewpoint, his means her. Because when Mahaprabhu was in Puri, then Mahaprabhu was in Radhabhav. So now Radharani is chanting the name of her beloved. So Keshavaya doesn't mean the killer of the Keshi demon, it means that lover of mine who very expertly dresses my kesh, my hair, and Sringar Bhat in so many places. So there's so many levels that these, as Prabhupada told us, we should examine every verse of the Bhagavatam from all angles of vision. So the Acharyas have summarized three basic ones: Adhyatmik Vichar, Adhibhautika Vichara, Adhyatmik and Adhidaivik Vichara. So the Rasik Vaishnava Acharyas, they have 360-degree broadband vision, so they're able to see everything, and they extract the nectar and the teachings and the Siddhanta and the Ras, and they distribute it through the means of their tikas. And we, who can only see Adhibhautika at best, we say, oh, wow, really? Oh, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Sanatana Goswami Pad ki jai. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. So they expand our vision. They give us 360-degree vision. Because on our own, if we read the Shastra, we have what they call tunnel vision. Tunnel vision. This is tunnel vision. Or we have maybe horse vision. And horse vision is like this. Kora Deki or whatever. They have these blinders on their eyes and they can't see peripherally. We'll finish this page. So apparently he went on with his teachings. This was not the conclusion, but this is all that's included here by Vrindavan Das. But the Lord went on all day glorifying Krishna. Mohita paduya sabha shunayekaman dvirukti karite karo na aise badan. The charmed students. Mohita paduya. Paduya means students or shishya. Mohita means mo. Mo means moha, illusion, bewildered, captivated, enchanted, or it's also a very nice word, charmed. They were charmed. Charmed also, you take a watch. That's called, hypnotizing someone is also charming them. So they were charmed by the beautiful. The charmed students heard the Lord's explanations with rapt attention. Ekaman. When we listen to Harikatha, we have so many minds. One mind's on lunch, one mind's on breakfast, one mind's on our shopping list, one mind's on my friends, one mind's on my mother, one mind's on... So it says, Ekman, sub shune ekaman. Sub, everybody. Sama, sub. Shune, same as Hindi, shunya. Listen, they heard. They listened, Ekman. So this is interesting because in the Bhagavatam, the first canto, it says that the sages at Misharanya, they were listening to Sutta Goswami. Shonak and all the others, they were listening to Sutta Goswami with rapt attention. Rapt attention. You could hear a pin drop, as they say. So this is a further elaboration of the concept of rapt attention. Means ekman, and that's everyone can understand that. The ekman means concentration. For example, if you read an engrossing book, some like Srimad Bhagavatam, hopefully for the Bhakta Gan, that is the most engrossing or attractive, absorbing book. So if you're really reading the book and absorbed, ekman, when you're reading, someone comes in and says, Hey Charu Krishna, Prasad's ready. You don't even hear them. Because if you're ekman, that means your mind is not going to your other senses. Your whole mind is going to your eyes. Your ears are going to your eyes. Your nose is going to your eyes. Your mouth is going to your eyes. Your tongue, your hand is going to your eyes. Otherwise, you're like, well. That means part of your mind is going to your hand to make it move. Or the people that go like this, they shake their leg. right? That has a lot of different meanings. Some of them are not so good. There are other means like negative, like in the lower chakras also. But if the body's moving, that means the mind has to be behind it. The body doesn't move without the mind moving it. Right? Thinking, feeling, willing. Willing means action, kriya. There's no kriya without icha, and there's no icha without manana, thinking. So in concentration, everything shuts down. The eye, only the eye. If you're reading, then if it's hearing, then your eyes shut down. Your eyes shut down. Your nose shuts down. Your hands shut down. And all the mind goes to the ears. The whole mind that's called Ekman Jap, right? The whole mind is just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And some mind is going to move the mouth also. Otherwise, you can't chant. So you can say, but it's one activity. So the mind is absorbed. It's Ekman because it's one activity. Hearing and chanting is one thing. But we hear Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And so your mind is spread all over your body, moving your arms, your legs, your fingers, you're scratching your head, you're this, that. So the mind is all spread, but to me, Ekman is like really focused. So that's how they heard the Lord. Because only if you're Ekman can you become Mohita. You can't become charmed by anything unless your mind is fixed on that. Something may be very charming, very enchanting, very captivating. Some animal or some... But someone might say, look at that animal. And they become captivated and they see the purple neck and the green feathers and the red beak and they become totally stunned. And you look and say, what is that? A stupid pink bird or something. All these tropical birds. Because you haven't fixed your mind on it, so you're not captivated. So we can't be captivated by Krishna's holy name or enchanted by Krishna's Leela unless we fix our mind on it. And shut out everything else. It's just basically the art of concentration. That's all the art of concentration means. Shutting out everything else and fixing it on the mind, right? So that's what hearing means. So we are supposed to become expert. We are supposed to be samadhi experts. One place he wrote an art of chanting. Why don't we? Has anyone ever tried once in their life trying to enter Nam Samadhi? Just try. Actually, consciously try to enter Nam Samadhi. In other words, try to sit down for 5 minutes and say, I'm going to fully concentrate on I'm going to go in a dark room, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur encourages us. I'm going to go someplace in the cellar or the basement, some super quiet place, and totally concentrate for 10 minutes on nothing but the holy name. And try my best to enter Samadhi, my intelligence, all my thoughts, my mind, everything's fixed on the holy name. Have we ever even thought to enter Nam Samadhi? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's something we can think about. So they were charmed. Mohita Paduya, ek sabasunim, dvi rukti karita karo aisevaran. None of them dared to open their mouths. In other words, they weren't this time, although this has happened before, this time they weren't about to say. Because before, when Lord Chaitanya was teaching Sanskrit, not Lord Chaitanya, Vishwambara was teaching Sanskrit, the students were, and then he broke into his Krishna reverie and started being absorbed in Krishna and speaking about Krishna. Then the students started passing comments. One comment they said is, well, he's acting like a murk. That's what they said. They said, our teacher's acting like a murk, like a fool. Then another student said, there's some disturbance in his life affairs. They said, Vayu, whatever it was, Chanchals, whatever. These words are there. We covered this in class. You were here. So now the same thing's happened. Again, he's come back. He started teaching Sanskrit, and again he's submerged in the ecstasy of separation from Krishna. And then he came out of that Madhurya sweetness and went into Avdarya, the Avdarya mode, and started teaching them and sharing these teachings with them and helping them come to the point of Madhurya. So now they're like, whoa, wait a minute. Because now they heard with rapt attention. Before, when he was going into his Krishna thing, they were just mocking him. They weren't really paying attention. Listen, what is he doing? He's becoming Pago, he's like a Morka, his air is disturbed. They were only thinking what they would say. And then they responded, because afterwards they went immediately to Gangadas and said, hey, in room 601, there's a guy teaching Sanskrit. He's crazy. They went to the dean of the school. The dean of the school is Gangadas Pandit. So you're in school and their teacher's speaking crazy. You go to the principal and say, this teacher's speaking crazy. He's saying Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. When we asked the question, what's the origin of Sanskrit? He said Krishna. We said, what's the origin of the mantras? He said Krishna. I said, what is this? What kind of school is this? Supposed to be a non-sectarian Sanskrit college. There's not supposed to be any religion here in this school. It's Benares University. Who is this? This guy in 601 is Pandit Vishwambar. He's like a crazy guy. That's what they did. They went to Gangadas. Because they weren't charmed by Mahaprabhu. They did not fix their minds on him. Now they Ekman, they were charmed. They were mohita. Charmed to the point of like, they couldn't speak. They were like this. None of them dared to open their mouths. Karite karona, I say badane. Say sava Krishna radas janiha nishchoy, Krishna janre parayena, seki anyahai. Vrindavan Das says, know for certain that they are all eternal servants of Krishna. When Krishna himself is teaching them, can they be anyone else? In other words, when the Lord descends to this world in his various descents, avatars, then he brings along his parishads or parikars to engage in lila for the purpose of relishing and enjoying, relishing the sweetness of their association in different venue or different settings and times and places, and also for other purposes. Primarily, the Lord descends to teach. He has his internal purposes and external purposes. So externally is to teach us and to show us and to attract us and to benefit us and to help us. So that's what's going on. Katashane bhaya prakashila vishwambar chahiyasa bharamukka lajita antar. After a while, Katashane, Vishwambar manifested his external consciousness. So this whole Madhurya Leela and this whole Audharya Leela, it's all going on in Antar Chit, all going on internal consciousness. But when he starts to act as a Sanskrit teacher, that's all external consciousness. Because Audharya is also Leela. This is internal consciousness. So when he was in a mood of distributing the sweetness of Krishna to the students, and that was his Audharya Leela. Now he's coming to this Prakash. He's manifesting external. After a while, Vishwambar manifested his external consciousness. He felt ashamed on seeing everyone's face there. Oh my God! First I showed them my Madhurya, and I submerged them. Prema Basila. I submerged them and drowned them in my Madhurya Prem. Then coming to the surface of that, I tossed them here and there with giving them Audharya, a stroke of compassion by glorifying Krishna and making him accessible and distributing Krishna to their ears by giving them some Sambandha and Avideya. But now he came out again to Bahi, to Prakash Bahya, manifesting it. Oh, I think maybe they couldn't handle it. I don't think they could handle it. So then he felt Laja Antar. Internally, within himself, he felt some shyness. Prabhu Bali. Now, here we go. This is a basic section of Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's always, the whole thing is so dramatic and so amazing. It could be such a beautiful play. There's a few scenes, there's 4 or 5 scenes. It could be like 2 hour, 1 hour drama. Prabhu Bali, Datu Sutra Vakainulan Kena, Padaya Sakali Bali, Satya Artha Yena. He was saying, because his whole thing started because someone said, can you explain what is the meaning of Dhatu? So Dhatu is a Sanskrit term about this words, the root, the mula, the root of the words. And he explained Dhatu means the Atma, Dhatu means the material body, and it's all Sambandha. He was giving Jiva, he gave Jiva Tattva and Ishvara, and Dhatu means Bhagavan, Dhatu, so he gave Jiva Tattva, Ishvara Tattva, and then he went into Avideya, and then he just for Krishna. Now he's coming back. He said, oh, did somebody ask me about here's the translation. The Lord asked, how is my answer to your question about Dhatu? How is my explanation of the sutras, Sanskrit sutras, on the Dhatus? The students replied, Badiya, bilkul. Satya Artha, art. Your explanations, your art, it was Satya, that was the truth. What you told us was the truth. This is the real meaning of Dhatu. So now they're getting somewhere. So now Mahaprabhu says, now he's totally in it, and again, now he's totally in his teacher bhav, Sanskrit bhav. Vishnubar continues. Ye shabde ye arta tume karila vakan kar bhapetaha kari bhare pare an. There is no one arrogant enough to deny the meaning of every word. Oh, excuse me. This is the students. There is no one arrogant enough to deny the meaning of every word that you have explained, Vishnubar. In other words, before, when you did this last time, we got on your case. We complained to Gangadas, we said you're Morka, we said your life affairs are disturbed, but we're not going to mess with you now. And we're not about, oh no, we're learning our lesson. Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 1, Madhyakanda, text 349. The Lord has told his students all about Krishna, and then he's challenging them to argue or refute his explanations. It all started with a question about Sanskrit dhatu. One student of Sanskrit, one of his Shishyagan, innocently asked a question about the Sanskrit dhatu, and then little did he know that he would get an entire dissertation dumped on his head. And the dissertation was the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in a nutshell, Sambandha Jnana Abhideya, and portion of Prayojan. And after describing dhatu in every possible way except in terms of Vyakaran, dhatu means Atma, dhatu means Krishna, dhatu means Paramatma, dhatu means the body. So many things he explained without answering the question in relation to Sanskrit. Then after giving this whole explanation of bhakti and chanting and serving the Lord and Shravanam and Kirtanam and Padasevanam and Archanam, which the Lord explained all these things in his discourse, then he said to the students, can you bring anyone here in Navadip who can challenge my presentation, who can argue or defeat me or refute me? And at this point, the students didn't want to fight City Hall. They said, no, Vishnubar, this is really good, whatever you said. And they said, Yateke vakana tumi sava satyahai savaye udesha pari tara artanai. The student said, whatever you have explained, Vishnubar, is perfectly true. But the aim for which we study is different. In other words, we have enrolled in this Sanskrit school to learn Sanskrit, not religious philosophy. This Sanskrit school is non-sectarian. We were told by the dean that no one would teach religion here. This is a Hindi high school, Hindi Sanskrit school. And you've been teaching nothing but religion lately. So now the Lord replies, Prabhu Bali, Kaha deki amare sakal, vayu va amare kariyache ye vival. Vishnubar Mahaprabhu said, could you explain everything to me? It seems I have been overwhelmed by a disorder of the nerves. Because previously, a few episodes ago, before, we had narrated how the students themselves, after he dipped into this preaching of Krishna consciousness the last time during the school session, then when he was concluded his preaching, then they were very vocal about it. And they said, and they were speaking among themselves and saying he's acting like a murka, he's acting like a fool. It appears that his life airs are disturbed. Then they went and complained to Gangadas and said, your teacher's gone haywire. He's telling us all this religious stuff, and we came to your school to learn Sanskrit. So then Gangadas reprimanded him, and then he came back. You know, everyone's been here. They know. So now the students aren't saying it. They're quiet. They're mum. But Mahaprabhu is saying, yes, I think actually there's some disturbance. I have some Ayurvedic disturbance. I have some disturbance of the nerves. And then he goes on, Vishnubar says, Sutsarupe kon vritti karye vakan. Shishya vargabale sabe eka harinam. My dear students, what import of the Sanskrit sutras did I explain today? The students replied, Shishya Varg Bali, you have explained the name of Hari in all of them. Whatever Sanskrit you've told us is nothing but Hari, 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 Hari. The students go on. Sutravritti Tikaya Vakana Krishna Matra Bhujite Tomara Vakya Keva Achi Patra. You have explained that Krishna alone is the meaning of the Sanskrit sutras, and the meaning of the tikas, and the meaning of everything. But who is qualified to understand your explanations? In other words, we don't understand a damn thing you said. Bhaktira Shravanaje Tamara Sihaye Tahate Tamare Kabu Naragyana Nahi. By the transformations you undergo while hearing about devotional service, one can never consider you are an ordinary human being. Now they're giving the feedback. The students are giving the feedback to the teacher. Because the teacher was beside himself. He was in antarchit. Because he said he was in internal consciousness. He was relishing the Madhurya of Krishna. Then he came into this mood of Audarya, which was also internal, of distributing the sweetness in a generous way, a magnanimous way. So then he started to distribute the sweetness by giving these teachings. And then after that, then it says Bhaya, that Vrindavan Das Thakur said. Then he came to external consciousness and said, after that preaching, as the preaching was all done from the internal level. The Audarya was being expressed from the internal level. He was in internal consciousness. He was not aware. He was in preaching samadhi. He was in samadhi, prachar samadhi. Then he came to external consciousness and said, was I teaching okay? Was I teaching Sanskrit? Is it all right? And then, so now they're saying, well, okay, you want to know the point? Everything you were saying was all Hari, Hari, Hari. And then not only that, you were in some kind of, when you started relishing the sweetness, the Hari Madhurya, the Rupa Madhurya, the Lila Madhurya of your Hari, then you exhibited sattvic vikars. You started trembling, and your voice choked up, and you were crying, and your color vipatu, your body was changing color. You became pink. Your golden face turned pink. We observed all these things. When you started hearing, when you heard, where did you hear? Where did you hear about devotional service? Where did Mahaprabhu hear about devotional service? Ratna, ding dong. Ratna Garvacharya. He went from door to door challenging Brahmins. And then he went to Ratna Garvacharya's house, and Ratna Garva started reciting Bhagavatam. Shlokas about Krishna's beauty, with his peacock feather and his mormukut, all these things. And then Vishnubar Radha Rani heard the beauty of Krishna and submerged in the ocean of Madhurya. And then coming out of that, he adopted this mood of Audarya, because there are two sides, there's two parts of the same ocean. So in the Audarya mood, he started preaching Krishna Katha, which is another way of relishing Krishna. Relishing Krishna's Nam Rup Gun Lila in internal bhavs and ecstasies, that's called Madhurya. But then also relishing Krishna's Nam Rup Gun and Lila in preaching, that's called Audarya. Audarya Lila, Madhurya Lila. So he was in both. It's all relishing. It's Radharani relishing. Radharani's preaching, that's Audarya Lila. Radharani's relishing, that's Madhurya Lila. Radharani means Krishna in the form of Mahaprabhu, relishing Radhabhav, Mahabhav. Relishing the bhav, and then distributing the bhav. So now the students are saying, listen, what we saw, we can't consider you an ordinary human being. Then, hearing that, Vishnubar's replied to the students, Prabhu Bali, Kon rupa de kaha amare, paduya sakale bali, jata chamatkare. The Lord said, well, in what form do you regard me? What form do you think of me? What is my form? What do you think? Kon rup de kaha amare. The student said, as the perfection of all excellence. That's an interesting translation. Paduya sakale bale jata chamatkare. Very interesting translation. Because the word is chamatkar. Chamatkari in Bengali and Hindi is the same. Sakale Bali. Paduya Sakale means all the students. Paduya. Paduya means students. Sakale all. Bali said. Jata Chamatkari. Chamatkari means what form? What is Chamatkar? Bewildering? Amazing? Astonishing? What does it mean in Hindi? Chamatkar. You don't know. You never heard the word Chamatkar.
Astonishing.
I said astonishing, bewildering, astounding.
Magical.
Astonishing.
No, it's magical. It's a sort of chamatkar.
Magnificent.
Magnificent. Beyond our comprehension. You understand comprehension? Beyond our thinking. So, but here it's saying it's perfection of all excellence. Anyway, they're saying it's beyond us. What form? He's asking, what form do you see me at? Some kind of chamatkar roop, some kind of astonishing, amazing thing that we really can't figure out. Magical, amazing thing. Jay Kampa. Now, what is that? Now, when we hear a description. Now they're going to describe this amazing chamatkar roop they saw. Jay Kampa Yeyashu Jeva Pulaka Tomar Amara Tukota Kabu Nahi Deki Ar, which we already mentioned, when he was relishing the Madhurya, of hearing these Madhurya shlokas, these shlokas from the Premi Bhakta Ratnagarbha, then he relished the Madhurya Leela, the Madhurya Bhav, Madhurarati, the Mahabhav, and all these symptoms came. The student said, we have never before seen the tears of love which you just showed. We have never seen such shivering and hair standing on end that you just manifested on hearing the shlokas describing the beauty of Krishna from Ratnagarbha Acharya. Kali tumi punti jabe chintaha nagari takana padila shloka eka vipravade. When you were teaching us yesterday in the town, a pious brahmana recited one verse. Now they're recollecting. Because that happened, then he came out. He came into external consciousness. He was in Madhurya, then he came to Audarya and preached, then he came to external consciousness and tried to teach us Sanskrit, but it didn't work. When he went back into speaking about Krishna. Now Lord Chaitanya is saying, well, what's going on? They're saying, listen, this is what we've observed. This is what happened. So now they're recounting. It's a flashback to Ratnagarbha Acharya. Bhagavata Shloka Shuni Haila Murchita Sarvange Nahi Pran Amara Vismita. The student said, after you heard Ratnagarbha Acharya recite a verse from Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Shlok, you fell unconscious, Murchita. That's the 8th symptom of septic bhavas, pralaya. Pralaya means devastation. Devastation means you crash. First you tremble, you change color, you tremble, you choke. Your hair stands on end, and all these different things. And finally, this becomes so intense. If they all happen at once, then you faint because you can't deal with it. You faint. Can't deal with the transcendental emotions. The rush and flood and tides of love overwhelm the heart, and one becomes unconscious. You fell unconscious. We were vismita, amazed to see that there were no symptoms of life visible in your body. Sarva ange nahi pran. Sarva ange, your arms, your legs, your face, your eyes, your ears, your fingers, your chest. There was no movement of pran. There was no movement of pran. There was no idea. We could not perceive that you were alive. You appeared to be dead. Chaitanya Pahya Jekaila Krandan Ganga Jainasya Haila Milan. The way you cried after regaining consciousness, it appeared that the goddess Ganga had manifested there. This is very interesting because previously, when we heard that the actual Leela was happening, where Mahaprabhu came to the door of the house of Ratnagarbha Acharya, and they met, they met immediately. The Brahman was reciting Bhagavad Shlokas, and Lord Chaitanya heard, and then he told him, go on, recite more, I'm in ecstasy. Then, seeing how he was receiving the recitation, then Ratnagarbha recited more Bhagavad Shlokas, and Lord Chaitanya went deeper into ecstasy. That's only described briefly. But the students who are observing this chamatkar, amazing, astonishing display, they kept it to themselves. Like you may see something but not talk about it. Did you see that car accident? Oh yes, I saw it. Then a few days later, hey, what was that car accident? Oh, and then you say, oh, his head was over here, his leg was over there, car was up. And then you go on for a half hour describing all the gory details. So now later, several days later, the students are describing in great detail what they observed in their Sanskrit teacher lying on the doorstep of Ratnagarvacharya. Oh, you want to hear what we saw, what form we saw? You're asking kon rupa? Dekaha? What form I saw? What form we saw? Well, we'll tell you what we saw. It's really chamatkar. And the translator gives, he says, the perfection of all excellence. Well, that's obviously it is the perfection of all excellence to display all the sattvic bhavs and mahab and pure love of God. That's the perfection of human life, to be absorbed in bhakti ras to such an extent that one becomes totally ecstatic. They go mad for Krishna. Chaitanya Paya Puna Ye Kaila Krandan Ganga Jainasya Haila Milan. So they're saying, you were crying so much that you flooded the whole place. It looked like Goddess Ganga came there. Sheshe Jai Vakampa Asi Haila Tomar Shatajana Samartha Na Haya Dharibhar. When you ultimately started shivering, even 100 persons could not hold you still. So now this is what happened on the doorstep in Ratnagarva's house. He was trembling so much. Romancha, Kampa, Asu, Taranga, like this. Kampa, trembling. Shatajan. We say, Shata means, like we say, what was it? Sahasra Shata. Shata means 100. 100 Samartha. 100 Jana. They couldn't, Dharibar hold you. Then what more? Then here's what more they saw. Apara mastaka hoila pulake unnati lala gharma dulaya vyapita gora murti. The hairs of your entire body stood on end, and your golden form was smeared with sweat, saliva, and dust. Lala garma dulai vyapita gora murti. Gora murti. Gora. Gauranga, Govinda Radha, Gora. The Murti was smeared. He was sweating, perspiring so heavily and rolling on the ground. And sweat and saliva was pouring from his mouth, and his body was covered with dust because it's all stuck on his body. He was sweating and trembling. This is the form, this is the chamatkar roop that they saw. This is our Sanskrit professor? What is going on? Apurva bhavaye saba deke jatajan sabe bhalina e purusha narayana. Everyone who saw you was struck with wonder. Apurva bhav, unprecedented feelings, unprecedented, never before seen feelings, bhav, emotions. Everyone was struck with wonder, and they said, "This must be God. This must be God. Who else could be like this? Purusha Narayan. This Purusha must be Narayan. And someone else said, Kehyabale Vyasa Sukha Narada Pralad Tan Sabara Samayogya E Mata Prasad. Someone else said, the mercy he has received is comparable to that received by Vyasadev, Shukadev, Narad and Prahlad. Sabe mele dharilena karaya shakati shaneke tamarasi bhaya hoilamati. Then with all their strength, everyone held you still, and shortly afterwards you regained external consciousness. Esab britanta tumi kichui na jana ara kata kahi taha chitta diya shuna. You do not know all these incidents. Now please hear attentively what we have to say. Because he was in internal consciousness. He didn't know what, he was like lost in his own samadhi. Prem samadhi, mahabhav. He doesn't know dust or no dust or sweat or no sweat or trembling or anything. Dina dhashadari kara yateka vakyan sarvashastre shabde Krishna bhakti Krishna nam. So that's one thing. We saw this chamatkar roop, this amazing, unbelievable display, and everyone thought it was Narayan, and 100 people couldn't hold you, and you made a real fool of yourself, rolling all around the ground. And what a sight! Not only that. Now let's get back to the classroom situation. Since the past 10 days, you have explained that devotional service to Krishna and the holy name of Krishna is the meaning of every word of every Shastra. All the Puranas, all the Itihasas, all the Vyakaran, all the Kavi, everything. It only means this. Naya Shastra, everything only means this. Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Nam. Sarva Shastra Shabde. The sound vibration, all the Shastra, it only means Krishna Bhakti and Krishna Nam. Nothing else. Dasadina Dhariyaji Patavara Vahai Kahite Tomari Sabe Vasi Bharavai. For the last 10 days, Professor, our studies have been held up, but we were afraid to inform you of this. In other words, for 10 days, you've been out of your mind. You've been totally absorbed in Krishna Prem, and I don't know what all else, and we've been kept quiet. But now we can't keep quiet anymore. Shabder ashesha art tamarat gochar yeva kana hasitaha ki dibe utar. Students go on. You know the unlimited meanings of every word. Who has the power to contradict even your light-hearted comments? Prabhu Bali. Dashadina patavad jai? Tabeta amari sabe kahite ju jai? Your studies have been held up for 10 days? Why haven't you informed me of this? The professor said, Bhaduya Sakalavale Vakanuchita Satya Krishna Sakala Shastrera Samhita. The students replied, your explanations were correct. The purport of all scriptures is that Krishna is the absolute truth. Haribo. Now they're seeing eye to eye. The student and the teacher are seeing eye to eye. Yes. Confirmation. Agreement. Acceptance. Sharanagati. The Guru's teachings are finding success. He gave Sambandha Gyan. He gave Abhideya Gyan. Now he made his moves on the chessboard. Now the next move is yours. Will you surrender or not? Will you dedicate your life to the service of Krishna or not? Do you accept Krishna as the absolute truth and nothing else or not? The purport of all the scriptures is that Krishna is the absolute truth. Satya Krishna Sakala Shastra Samihita. Hita means benefit. Sam means complete benefit. The purpose, the benefit, the value of all the Shastras is Krishna is the truth, and the truth is Krishna. And the truth shall set you free. Adyayana ese sakala shastra sar tabe jena laidosha amasabakar mulayeva kanatumi gyatavya se ise tahatena layachitta nija karma doshe. Students go on. This is real study and the essence of all scriptures, and it is our fault if we do not accept it. Whatever you have explained, Vishwambar, is fundamental truth and the only knowledge worthy of the name knowledge. It is due to our own misdeeds that we do not accept it. Interesting. Due to our karma dosh, nija karma dosh, nalaya chitta. We're not accepting this in our chitta, in our consciousness. We're not embracing this, surrendering to this, accepting this because of our dosh, our fault, our dirt, our contamination, our parabdha, our sins. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punyakarmana te dvandvamo nirmukta pajanti mam jidavrata. Krishna says in Gita, Yesham tvantakatam papam. When the papa or sin becomes diminished, then one can embrace firmly the path of bhakti, jidavrata. So they're saying, and the purport is told here. This is a that Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is paraphrasing or paraphrasing what the students have said in this verse. Shishyagan said, although the only aim, intention, and purport of all the scriptures is to understand Krishna. This is the students giving a paraphrase. Although the only aim, intention, and purport of all the scriptures is to understand.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Vajabhakata Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Sri Gaurahari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chitahari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kana Bhova Mandire Basi Karaha Bojana Nandirani Deshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Saka Boise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Baji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana Durga Tumi Dadi Mocha Kanda Udabora Mash Boda Roti Kabritana Raskuli Pista Kakir Puli Payasana Kapura Amrita Keli Ramba Kirashara Amrita Rasalama Dvadasha Pakora Luci Sinisar Puri Ladura Sabali Ramayana Vivida Vyanjana Paramayanande Krishna Korena Bojana Chale Bale Ladu Khai Sri Madhu Mangala Bagala Bajaya Deya Hari Bolo Radhika Re Gani Hari Nayane Rakone Tripta Hoye Kai Krishna Jasoda Bhavani Bhojanande Priya Krishna Subhasita Bari Sabe Mukha Prakaloy Kore Sari Sari Asta Mukha Prakaliya Jata Sakagane Anande Vishrama Kore Baladeva Sane Jambula Rasalane Kambula Masala Tahake Krishna Chandra Suke Nidradeva Vishalaka Shiki Pucha Chamara Dulaya Apurva Saya Krishna Suke Nirayaya Yasomati Anga Priye Danishtaya Nito Sri Krishna Prasad Raja Govinda Govinda Gopala
Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugandamilana Krishna Yugal Namilana Aroti Karove Lalit Adi Saki Gana Aroti Karove Lalit Adi Saki Gana Madana Mohana Rupa Tribanga Sundara Madana Mohana Rupa Tribanga Sundara Pitambara Siki Pucha Chuda Manohara Pitambara Siki Pucha Chuda Manohara Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugala Milana Aroti Karove Lalit Adi Saki Gana Lalita Madhava Vame Vrishabhanu Kanya Lalita Madhava Vame Vrishabhanu Kanya Sunila
That one thing again. Now he's going to get love. He was talking. No doubt he did, but this is first case like this.